So we actually are moving into lesson 5 out of chapter 3. That's kind of cool. And we're going to start with graphing a line using intercepts. So we know what a y-intercept is. We've already talked about that. But we also need to introduce what is an x-intercept. So let's start by reviewing a y-intercept. Who can give me a good definition of a y-intercept? And you can always go back and look in your notes if you're feeling unsure, afraid to speak your voice. But look back, what did we say about what is a y-intercept? Jacob?
Where does the line cross the y-axis?
Okay, so point. Point where a line crosses the y-axis. Okay, good. Now, who can tell me the coordinates in general, and we can use the letter y to represent the y-coordinate. What would the ordered pair look like of that y-intercept? So what would the x-coordinate be? What would the y-coordinate be? Okay. Right, Ashlyn.
0, whatever number.
Yeah, so we'll just use y. Okay? All right, so that's that. So knowing what a y-intercept is, who would like to give me a guess as to what an x-intercept is? There we go. Very good. Point where a line crosses the x-axis. Okay. Now, what do you think the coordinates of that point would be? So think logically, and we can just use x to represent the x-coordinate. What do you think?
Is it x, comma 0?
Perfect. Okay, that's it. Understanding that intercepts have only one coordinate that's a value, and the other coordinate for sure has to be a 0. Now, they both could be 0 if, let's say, your line goes through the origin. The x-coordinate and the y-coordinate, or the x-intercept and the y-intercept would be the same one, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, but most of the time we have a number where it passes somewhere else on an axis, but the other coordinate is going to be 0. Okay? Now, I want to share with you something else, is an equation called standard form. Remember how we talked about point-slope form? Slope-intercept form? Now we've got standard form. Point-slope form is yet another one we'll learn. Okay, so lines have all sorts of forms they take. So let's talk about standard form. Actually, you know what? I'm going to go to the next screen because I want more room. Let's go to the next one. Oops. All right, so standard form. Okay. Standard form looks like this. AX plus BY equals C. AX plus BY equals C. Okay, and we've got some rules that we have to follow. First off, it may look differently, but there's actually only 2 variables shown in that form. What would be the 2 variables in that form? Ashley? X and Y. You're so quiet about it. X and Y. These are the only 2 variables. So if X and Y are the only variables, then what are A, B, and C? Numbers. Okay, but we have some stipulations about those numbers. Number 1, let's talk about A. A, by the way, always goes with X. A can't be on Y. He's always with X. They're the partners. But A has to be greater than or equal to 0. What does that tell you about the types of numbers A could be if it's greater than or equal to 0? Okay, it could be 1, but let's go generically. All right, Ashlyn again is giving me that.
Positive?
Yeah. So this is basically saying the A value is positive. Now I have to tell you that over time, this is the first time I've seen that definition. It has always been customarily A should be positive. But it would be permissible for A to be negative. Now it says A has to be positive. Now it gives me the option that I could have 0. If I have A equals 0, what happens to the X? What math is going on between the A and the X? Multiplying. So if I multiply X by 0, what do I get? 0. So the X would be eliminated out of that equation. What kind of line do I get, and don't tell me straight, if I just have Y equals a number? You had it on your homework last night.
Oh, 1.
Nope.
0.
No. If Y equals some number,
Oh.
what kind of line do you get? Okay. Think about what would slope dude say? What kind of lines gave you a slope that was 0?
Oh,
Or-
I mean,
Yeah. When we had no fun, it was just a horizontal line.
0 fun.
And so if there's no X term, that means slope is 0, right? Because it's not there. So we would have a horizontal line. So it's okay to do that. If I let B equal 0, that would eliminate the Y term, and then I would just have some X equals a number. That is your vertical line, because it doesn't pass through the Y-axis. There is no Y-intercept. Okay? All right. So rule number 1 for standard form, it has to be written AX plus BY equals C. So remember, A has to be, or X has to be in front of Y. That's the key thing, is alphabetical order with your variables. So I'm going to write that over here too, alpha order. Okay. Next, they have a rule that says A and B can't both be 0. If both the A value and the B value equaled 0, what would you have left on the left side? What would become of AX plus BY if A was 0 and B was 0?
0.
You would have 0. And then you would say 0 equals some number.
0.
That doesn't make sense. How can 0 equal 4? How could 0 equal negative 7? So that's why we can't let them both be 0. A could be 0 or B could equal 0, but they can't both be 0 at the same time. So that's another rule. Let's see. Oh, let's talk about all 3 of them together. A, B, and C are all numbers, but they're particular types of numbers. They're integers only. Okay? So what does that mean that A, B, and C cannot be? If you can only have integers, what can you not have? What are numbers that are not integers? You know those people. Negative is part of integers. Negative is good. What'd you say, Palmer? No, say it again. Okay, well, that's signs. Oh, I heard somebody, decimals. So no decimals. What else can you not have?
Fractions.
No fractions.
I got it.
Yay. Okay, so no decimals, no fractions. So A has to be positive, or it could be equal to 0. A and B can't both be equal to 0. A, B, and C are integers only, no decimals or fractions allowed. So if we have a fraction, we're going to have to figure out how to get rid of it. Okay? All right, but what I want to talk about is how do we use this form to help us graph. So I'm going to go to my next screen. You guys have plenty of room there. So to graph using standard form. Or to graph, I'm sorry, using intercepts. This is directions, and then we'll do examples. To graph using intercepts only. One, write equation in standard form. Now I'm going to tell you all the homework problems you have are already in standard form. So you want it to say ax plus by, b, equals c. This is going to make calculations the easiest. 2. Let's find the x-intercept. Remind me again, what does the ordered pair for the x-intercept look like? X comma 0. Okay, that's crucial to what we're going to do. What we're going to do is take our ax plus by equals c, and we're going to substitute in for b 0. Why? Because that's the coordinate of the y value, okay? So that's, well, actually, let's do it this way. Let me put it in the other spot. It's actually going to take the place of the y. Because of this. So we let y equal 0. And then we have this equation to solve. Now, you're going to have numbers here. And then you would solve for c. Or solve, sorry, mouth. Solve for x. I left my breakfast in the car, so my brain's kind of going. If I eat Devin's delicious, no doubt, cream puff, I will be like bouncing off the walls. But I'll do it anyway because I can't believe I resisted this long. Okay? So we'll solve this for x and get our answer. Done. Okay? Then the next thing we're going to do is find the y-intercept. So what's the ordered pair for any y-intercept, generically speaking? 0, comma y. So what this says is we're going to take our standard form, but we're going to replace x with 0. So we're going to let x equal 0. That's going to leave us with by equals c, and then we would solve for y. Next, we're going to graph the x-intercept. On the x-axis. And the y-intercept. On the y-axis. So we actually have one dot on the x-axis, one dot on the y-axis. That's it. And now the last thing, draw a line through the points. Okay? So let's go ahead. We're going to do a couple of examples. And again, tonight, every question I'm going to give you to use this strategy, they're already written in standard form. So you don't have to panic about that. They're already there. It just makes the math. Oh, I'm sorry. Were you guys ready?
Yeah.
Was everybody ready? Okay, we're waiting. Do you think you're always going to get integer values for your x-intercept and your y-intercept? Are you guaranteed to always get integers? The answer is no. You may end up having fractions to graph. So we end up estimating to our best ability where we think that would be. Now, looking at a number, if it's a fraction, we know what two whole numbers it falls between. We know if it's closer to the small one, if it's less than a half. It's closer to the larger one if it's more than a half. And we just estimate. So there's a lot of wiggle room with the graphing in terms of the exact placement if we have a fraction. But we try to estimate to our best ability, okay? So I've got 4 examples, and the directions are going to be all the same, graph using intercepts. I'm going to give you 4 completely different looking problems. Now the bummer is you're going to have to create these graphs yourself on the graph paper, on your line paper. On homework tonight, you're going to be graphing on graph paper. And so we're going to do something completely outside the box for you. I'm going to list the equations for your homework, and you're going to copy them down exactly. And then I have graph paper here, top tray in the top shelf of my little bookcase, and you can help yourself unless you're somebody smart like Simon and bought himself a graph paper spiral. So that's going to be helpful. Just make sure, Simon, that you always label what assignment that is. Okay? I have seen kids for years don't label their graph paper, and then when I say, well, where's this? They're like, I don't know. And then I have to figure out, oh, those problems were on this page. Okay, don't do that. Label everything. So graph using intercepts only. So you guys have practiced graphing using slope intercept, but you can't use that form. You have to graph using intercepts, and that's what your directions are going to be for tonight. So first problem I'm going to give you is 4x plus 3y equals 12. So for my x-intercept, I remember that y equals 0. So when I rewrite my equation knowing that, I have 4x plus 0, because anything times 0 is 0, equals 12. And all I have to do is divide both sides by 4. And I get x equals 3. Now, I can leave it like that and just remind myself when I get to 3 on the x-axis, I'm going to make my dot. If you want, you can rewrite it as an ordered pair. 3, 0. Okay? Then I'm going to go solve for the y-intercept. And I remember from my notes that the x-coordinate is going to equal 0. So this is what my graph is going to, or my equation is going to look like now. 0 plus 3y equals 12. So really it's just 3y equals 12. To solve, I divide by 3. And I get y equals 4, or as an ordered pair, 0, 4. So then I pull out my graph paper, and I make a graph. Now when I do my graphs, I cater my graphs to the numbers that I'm being asked to graph. I have a positive x and a positive y. So I really don't need to show much on the negative x and the negative y axes, but I still need them to be there. I still need to label x and y. I need to make tick marks at the lines of the, oops, I'm kind of off, at the lines of the graph paper. If I'm making tick marks in between, my graph paper is obsolete. There's no reason to be using it. I label at least every other number, 2 and 4. Now, this is crucial that you do this on your homework, because this is exactly what I'm going to be looking for when you're grading. Not did you get just the right points and graph the line correctly. Did you set up the graph correctly? Every graph gets set up the same way. 2 axes with arrow caps. The x-axis labeled x on the right, the y-axis labeled y at the top. Tick marks on the lines of the graph paper, label every other number. Okay, so I should see the evens. Now I just simply graph my 2 points. So my x-intercept was at 3, 0. My y-intercept was at 0, 4. And all I do now is to connect them with a line. And that's it. Pretty easy stuff. And that's all because it was written in standard form for me. It was really simple to solve. All right, I want to give you a couple of weirdos. So this is when you got to think about what we came up with. So this one, I think I can fit here. Yep. Y equals 3. So for the x-intercept, where the y value equals 0, this is what I get. 0 equals 3. When does 0 equal 3?
Never.
Never. So what that says is my line never crosses the x-axis. Never. Line never crosses the x-axis. So what's the only kind of line that will never intersect the x-axis? So here's my x-axis. What kind of line is never going to cross through it? Let's see, these are all crossing through it.
Horizontal.
Yeah. Something that's horizontal is what we call parallel. Remember, in parallel, things never touch each other. So it has to be a horizontal line. Where is it telling me to draw that horizontal line? Yeah. So, but where on the y-axis? At the 3. So when I have y equals a number, I'm going to get a horizontal line. It's going to pass through that y value, and it's going to be parallel to the x-axis. So my line, well, let's put in my y value is at 3. So my horizontal line has to pass through that guy.
It's going to be parallel to them.
So he's parallel to the x-axis. That's it. Okay? Ashlyn wants to know about if it's just x equals. So we're going to do, that was my very next one. You read my mind, child. Okay, everybody ready? Are we good? Yeah, good, 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 good. Everybody good? Yeah? Ethan, you get the gold star today. You get a gold star today. Because you're coming up with good answers. I like that. So x equals -2. Guess what they just told me? They told me the x-intercept. I don't even need to calculate the x-intercept. Bam. But if I try the y-intercept, and that's where x equals 0, I get 0 equals -2. So what does that tell me about a y-intercept? It will never, ever, ever cross the y-axis. So the only kind of line that will never, ever, ever cross the y-axis would have to be a line that's parallel to it, which would have to be a vertical line. So we get a vertical line anytime I just have an x by itself. Oops, I'm having a hard time with straight today.
So anytime x is by itself, it's vertical, and then if it's a y, it's horizontal.
Bingo. Because remember, undefined was that vertical line, okay? And notice this one, there's no slope, okay? There's no slope. I can't even tell you how to get a slope because this doesn't make sense. And when we had the y equals, the slope was 0. And 0 fun was a horizontal line. So let's see, 1, 2, I just need to go down to here, and then we go through the x-intercept, which is at -2, and we just draw our line through it. Oh, sorry. Hello, maybe if I woke up, I'm going back to my wrong guy over here. This is where I want to put my numbers. Sorry about that. So that's at 2. Oh, I need to go the other direction. See, this is what happens when I don't eat breakfast, and the only thing in my body is coffee. Not good combination. Let's try this again. So my x-intercept is at -2, and the only way for this not to cross the y-axis is to be parallel to it. So that gives me that vertical line. All right, I want to do one more where we get fractions, just so you can see how you would graph a fraction. So we have 7x plus 2y equals 6. So let's start with our x-intercept. We're going to have the 7x. Y becomes 0. So we have just a big old plus 0. And that equals 6. So we're going to divide both sides by 7. And we get x equals 6/7. So that's a value that's a fraction. It won't be at the lines of the graph paper, because those are only integers. So it's somewhere between two numbers. What two numbers does 6/7 fall between?
How'd you get 6/7?
6 divided by 7. To solve for x, I have to divide by 7. It's called one-step equations. We did those back in chapter 2, a lot of them. To solve for x, you need to divide by the coefficient. The coefficient was 7. 6 divided by 7, they don't go into each other, so I just leave it that way. I don't do decimals, ever. What two whole numbers does 6/7 fall between? No. No. What two whole numbers does 6/7 fall between? No. No, not 2 and 3. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, look at it. Envision a number line in your head. Where would 6/7 fall between? Not 1 and 2, because it would be 1 and 6/7. Be between 1 and 2. Finally, yes, the light has shown again. It's between 0 and 1.
Oh, because it's
Because there's no whole number part. It's just a fraction, so that means it has to be somewhere between 0 and 1. Okay? Let's go with the y-intercept. So that makes the x value 0. And then we have plus 2y equals 6. So really the equation is just the 2y equals 6. So to get y alone, you divide both sides by 2, and we get y equals 3. So what I'm going to do is graph those two. And again, both of my intercepts were positive, so I don't really need to show much on the negative parts of either axis. Oops. So here's 4, here's 2. Sorry, that looks a little low. Here's 2, here's 2. So for my x-intercept, it's 6/7. It's between 0 and 1. Is it closer to the 0s or closer to the 1? 6/7. Yeah, it's almost at 1. So I'm going to just put it right in front of the 1. Okay, and then the y-intercept is at a solid 3. And then I just connect them. And that's it. So that's what you get to do for homework tonight.